The drill sergeant's voice cracked as he screamed orders at 200 frozen recruits, but something had gone terribly wrong with the obstacle course. Metal groaned ominously, safety harnesses hung useless, and panic spread through the ranks like wildfire. Then a small woman in coveralls stepped forward, dropped her broom, and did something that made every officer's jaw hit the ground. She vaulted a 14-foot wall blindfolded, using a technique that hadn't been taught in decades. The stunned silence that followed revealed a secret that would shake the entire military academy to its core. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across the Redhaven Military Academy training grounds, where Lena Carver pushed her wheeled cart along the perimeter fence, the familiar squeak of its wheels marking her presence like a metronome. At barely 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighing no more than 120 pounds, she cut an unremarkable figure in her faded blue coveralls and worn canvas sneakers. Her graying brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her weathered hands gripped the broom handle with the practiced ease of someone who had swept these same pathways for what appeared to be years. The recruits called her Phantom. They did so behind her back, not out of malice, but because she seemed to materialize wherever training was taking place, always sweeping, always watching with those sharp hazel eyes that seemed to catalog every movement, every technique, every mistake. Some joked that she knew the obstacle course better than the instructors themselves, having observed thousands of attempts from her seemingly invisible position along the sidelines. Today, like every other day, Lena moved methodically around the massive training complex, her broom collecting leaves and debris while her attention remained fixed on the activities unfolding before her. The Redhaven Academy was renowned throughout the military world for producing elite special forces operatives. Its obstacle course was considered one of the most challenging and dangerous training facilities in existence. It stretched across 12 acres of carefully designed terrain, featuring rope climbs reaching 40 feet into the sky, water obstacles that tested endurance and breath control, mud crawls beneath razor wire, and walls of varying heights that culminated in the infamous Judgment Wall, a 14-foot vertical barrier that had ended more careers than any other single obstacle. The morning's training session involved 200 recruits from various branches of the military, all competing for spots in advanced special operations programs. They stood in perfect formation at the starting line, faces set in masks of determination and barely controlled anxiety. These were not ordinary soldiers, but carefully selected candidates who had already proven themselves in combat and specialized training. Yet even they approached the Redhaven course with the reverence typically reserved for sacred ground. Major Ellis, the lead drill instructor, surveyed his charges with the cold efficiency of a predator evaluating prey. His voice, honed by years of shouting commands across training grounds, carried easily through the morning air as he outlined the day's challenge. Today's exercise is simple in concept, complex in execution. You will navigate the complete obstacle course as a unit. Success depends not just on individual performance, but on team cohesion and mutual support. The clock starts now, and it doesn't stop until every last one of you crosses the finish line. The recruits exploded into motion, boots pounding against the packed earth as they surged toward the first obstacle. Lena kept sweeping, but her movements grew more deliberate, more focused. She positioned herself near the control tower, where exercise monitors tracked progress and safety protocols. To a casual observer, her presence there might have seemed coincidental, but nothing about Lena Carver was ever truly coincidental. The first obstacles fell quickly. Recruits climbed ropes like spiders, muscles straining. The water obstacles claimed their victims as expected, some floundering at the cold shock, others powering through with mechanical precision. Mud crawls left everyone caked in grime. Then came the seventh obstacle, a network of horizontal bars and hanging rings requiring both strength and timing. Halfway across, recruit Patterson, a powerfully built former Marine, froze as a high-pitched whine split the air. One of the support cables was under extreme stress. "Hold position. All units hold position," barked the safety inspector. The command rippled across the course. Recruits froze mid-climb, mid-leap, mid-crawl. In the control tower, technicians scrambled to assess the situation while instructors shouted counter-orders. The whining grew into a grinding screech that signaled imminent failure. Lena stopped sweeping entirely, eyes narrowing. She moved toward the control tower, casual in pace but purposeful in bearing. Inside, the technicians argued about shutdown procedures, their voices climbing. "The entire network is compromised," Chief Safety Inspector Graves announced, pale as he read the data. "If that main support fails, the whole section could collapse." Evacuation was easier said than done. Recruits were scattered over 12 acres, some in positions where moving quickly was more dangerous than staying put. The horizontal bars alone had 37 recruits suspended at various heights. Major Ellis keyed his radio. "We have a code yellow equipment failure on Obstacle 7. Implement Safety Protocol Delta 9. Medical teams, stand by." Lena's gaze swept the displays in the tower. She saw what the others didn't. The cables supporting Obstacle 7 were linked to Obstacles 8 through 12, including the Judgment Wall. If 7 failed, the collapse would cascade. She stepped forward. "You need to look at the interconnect readings for Obstacles 8 through 12. Graves shot her a look. "Ma'am, you need to clear the area. This is restricted. The primary support array is shared between Obstacle 7 and the Judgment Wall," she pressed on, voice gaining authority. "When the horizontal bars collapse, the shock load will propagate through the entire eastern section. You have maybe 3 minutes before the wall fails." The room went still. Ellis turned to her. "How could you possibly know that?" Lena slid into a monitoring station like she belonged there. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up structural diagrams and stress charts faster than most of the techs could find them. "Here," she pointed. "Junction point 7 alpha is already showing fractures. When the main support fails, the whiplash will travel through these 3 cables. The wall anchors can't take that load." Graves leaned in, his irritation giving way to alarm. "She's right. The whole eastern section is compromised." Ellis's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "My name is Lena Carver. And right now, that doesn't matter as much as getting those recruits to safety. You have maybe 2 minutes before the cascade begins." But some of the recruits were too exposed to evacuate safely. That's when Lena said, "There's another option, but you're not going to like it." She left the tower and walked toward the Judgment Wall. Instructors stared as she tied a strip of cloth over her eyes. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the wall and launched herself upward. Blindfolded. She climbed with fluid, inhuman precision. Her hands found each hold without hesitation. When she reached the overhang, a 15-degree backward angle that challenged even the best, she didn't pause. She flowed over it as though gravity had forgotten her. In under 30 seconds, she was at the top. She untied the blindfold and called down, "Anchor point failure will begin in about 90 seconds. The wall will shift 18 inches east before the secondary anchors engage. Anyone on the wall, move to positions 7 through 12 on the eastern face. Those are the only points that will hold." Ellis stared up at her. "That route you took, I've never seen anyone climb it like that." "Because I designed it," she said simply. Silence rippled through the ranks. Moments later, Obstacle 7's main support cable snapped with a sound like a gunshot. The shock wave rattled through the course exactly as Lena had predicted. But the recruits who followed her orders held fast. Casualties, 0. When she reached the ground, she was surrounded. Ellis stepped forward. "You designed this course?" "The records say it was built by classified special operations staff." "That's correct," she said. "I was project lead from 2016 to 2019. Colonel, Shadow Unit, Special Operations Command." The name alone froze the air. Shadow Unit was the stuff of whispered legend, ghost operatives whose skills were almost supernatural. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of evacuation, inspection, and whispered questions. When asked why she revealed herself now, Lena's answer was simple: 200 recruits were in danger. Sometimes the mission requires stepping out of the shadows. By the time higher command arrived, she was sweeping again, blending back into the role she had played for months. But no one, not the recruits, not the instructors, would ever see her the same way again. By noon the east sector was cordoned off with hazard tape that snapped in the breeze. Technicians in hard hats moved like chess pieces while Major Ellis grilled his staff under the shade of the control tower. Lena Carver, still phantom to the whispers, kept sweeping, an odd metronome to the chaos. But anyone watching closely could see the broom wasn't for dust, it was for access. She drifted just where she needed to be, hearing the right argument at the right time. Graves approached with a tablet, jaw tight. Preliminary analysis on the failure. Shear points on the 7 alpha junction show, tampering. Not a lot, but enough. Someone shaved a fraction off the tolerance and swapped 2 bolts for lookalikes. Ellis exhaled through his nose. Sabotage? Graves nodded. Skillful. Surgical. Whoever did it knows this system and wanted a cascade when the load peaked. Lena angled the broom into its stand. Where are the replaced bolts? Graves hesitated, then handed her the bagged evidence. The heads looked identical, but the threads had a whisper-fine pitting pattern, like a fingerprint. Lena's eyes went distant. You're not going to find this alloy in standard supply. It's a boutique mix, used for vibration testing, and for counterfeits that pass visual inspection. Ellis folded his arms. Meaning? Meaning, Lena said softly, whoever did this either bought from a very small circle or built them. And they didn't just want to collapse. They wanted a message. To who? To me. Patterson, the burly recruit from earlier, hovered at the perimeter. Ma'am, Captain, sir, he stammered, not sure who outranked whom anymore. There's something else. On the wall platform, near position 8, there was chalk. Just a smudge, but it looked deliberate. Graves frowned. We wash those platforms daily. Not this one, Patterson said. It was under the lip. Like someone tagged it and hid it. They climbed to the Judgment Wall's catwalk. The wind pressed uniforms flat as they crouched under the overhang. Patterson pointed. There, faint, almost part of the concrete, was a sigil, 2 slashes and a dot. Lena traced it with a gloved finger and, for the first time, the mask slipped. Something like grief flickered through. Ellis caught it. Talk to me. She looked out over 12 acres of steel and dirt, the thing she'd built, the thing someone had just turned into a weapon. Years ago, in places that don't exist on maps, we used marks to talk when radios would have gotten us killed. 2 slashes and a dot meant unfinished business. Only 3 people used this mark in my unit. Shadow unit, Ellis said. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Back on the ground, Graves' team began a full audit, parts, badges, shift logs. Lena moved with Patterson through the workshops, touching metal like it remembered. Why sweep here? He asked at last, unable to hold it. You could be lecturing in any war college on Earth. Lectures don't stop falling cables, she said. And sometimes the best place to see a pattern is the ground. A clatter answered her, muffled, behind a locked maintenance cage. Patterson's hand went to his radio, but Lena stilled him with a glance. She knelt, studied the lock, then stood. Graves. Get your eyes on this. We'll open it by the book. When the cage door swung wide, the smell of cutting oil rolled out. On the workbench, 2 more counterfeit bolts, a custom die with that same whisper pitting, and a printout of the Eastern Sector schematics with blue lines drawn by a steady hand. And there, on the margin, the same sigil //. An alert chime pealed from the tower. Another alarm, obstacle 11, the high traverse over the water pit, showing load anomalies with no one on it. Graves cursed. If there's a second cascade. It won't be a cascade, Lena said, scanning the printout. It'll be a demonstration. Of what? Control. They reached the traverse bridge in a dead run, Ellis, Graves, Patterson, Lena. From below the catwalk, hidden in the truss, a tiny servo whined to life, torquing a cable anchor by micrometers. No big snap this time, just an invisible, inevitable drift toward failure. Lena lay flat, peered into the shadowed lattice, and smiled without humor. He was always theatrical. He? Her voice went level, professional. Wade Mercer. My number 2. Brilliant. Precise. Thought the unit should sell its skills when the missions dried up. I shut him down. He vanished. Ellis hissed. You're telling me a ghost you trained is hunting you on a campus with 200 candidates? I'm telling you Mercer thinks training should hurt. She reached into the truss, fingers dancing among cables like a safecracker at midnight. Patterson watched, heart thudding, as she took the tension on a fingertip, felt the lie in the pull, then snapped a tiny wire with a twist. The servo died. The anomaly vanished from Graves' tablet. Silence, then the PA crackled, someone on the admin channel without permission. A voice came through, smooth as a blade. Nice catch, Director. Patterson flinched. Director? Lena stared up at the speaker horn as if it were a face. Hello, Wade. Well, the voice purred, at last you're not sweeping. The campus locked down. Doors that hadn't been used in years slammed on hydraulic hinges. Drones hummed out of their hatches and began lazy, predatory orbits. Cadets were herded to the stadium with blankets and water, restless energy ricocheting under the bleachers. Rumors mutated by the minute, bomb threats, a hacker, a drill. Only the wind told the truth, sharp, alert, waiting. Ellis and Graves met Lena in a briefing room that smelled of coffee and burned dust. On the wall, a live map of Redhaven pulsed with security feeds. Graves pinched and dragged, isolating the East Works. We scrubbed the badge logs. No Wade Mercer on campus. No unknown entries, either. Lena paced. He wouldn't badge in. He'd ghost the cameras, ride a maintenance truck he doctored himself, stash the tools, and leave triggers. He's not here now, he never stays for the punchline. He waits somewhere with a radio and watches what I do. Ellis stumped closer to the map. So we bait him. Lena didn't smile. We give him a choice he can't resist. She called up the old schematics from muscle memory and added something to the map that wasn't there, ghost layers, auxiliary channels she had designed into the course in case a live-fire exercise went catastrophic. This place is a spine, she said, fingers tapping a hidden corridor that ran under obstacles 8 through 12. Mercer knows. He used to call it the vein. If he wanted to feel the course breathe, he'd crawl it. Graves blinked. We sealed that after you left. You sealed the doors, Lena said. Not the vents. They rode a utility cart to a neglected corner where kudzu massed against concrete. Patterson met them there, rifle slung, eyes wide but steady. He'd chosen to stay, though he could have waited with the others. Permission to accompany, he said to Ellis. Ellis glanced at Lena. She shrugged. If he can keep his head. I can, ma'am. They pried up a rusted grate and dropped into cool, iron air. The tunnel was a time capsule, chalk notes, old tape marks, a joker's playing card pinned to a seam. Patterson's light swept ancient adhesive and spider silk. Ellis muttered, feels like the world's angriest subway. Halfway in, they found the first gift. A tiny pressure mat connected to, Lena crouched, an aerosol canister. Not lethal, she said. Just a tracer dye. He wants to paint whoever uses the vein. Graves exhaled. So he's nearby. Near enough to laugh, Lena said. They bypassed the mat, moved deeper until a whisper of air told them a vent opened above. Voices bled through, 2 instructors in the equipment shed, arguing over inventory. Lena clicked her tongue softly, counting. He's 3 rooms over. He'll have line of sight on the shed doors, and on the judgment wall. Patterson frowned. Why the wall again? Because it's mine, Lena said. He wants to write on my blonkiest page. They climbed a service ladder and emerged behind a stack of new harnesses. Lena scanned the room. On a workbench lay a neat array of tools, calipers, micro-torque driver, adhesive that looked like toothpaste and set like diamond. No fingerprints. But under the bench, Taped to the underside where only a crawling saboteur would find it, was a phone, cheap, burner, screen cracked. It lit when she touched it. A video played, static, then a view of the wall from the catwalk, filmed at dawn. A hand placed the // mark. The camera panned to show a dark figure. Stepping back, giving a two-finger salute without turning. Then a text overlay blinked, last bell at 1600. Graves checked his watch. 30 minutes. Ellis' jaw flexed. Can he do anything with the cadets in the stadium? Unlikely, Lena said. He's not a mass casualty man. He's surgical. He'll aim for shock, control, and a personal audience. At 1600, the wind shifts. The catwalk microphones will pick up the Academy anthem from the parade field, the perfect cover for a small detonation that moves the wall 18 inches and makes me watch. Patterson swallowed. So we stop the detonation. We absorb it, Lena said. And we take his eyes. They moved like a pit crew, Graves with the engineers, Ellis on security, Patterson running, hauling, sweating. Lena led them to a maintenance bay beneath the wall and pointed at a concrete rib nobody had looked at in years. If we preload this brace with counter-torque and give it somewhere to dump the energy, a small blast will flex the face without a catastrophic shift. It'll look like a miracle. Mercer will lean forward. And then? Ellis asked. Then we close the vein. They set the brace, wired the energy dump with a sacrificial plate, and rigged a kill switch in the tunnel, a lever that would slam blast doors across the vents and lock any crawler inside with a whole lot of nothing. Patterson volunteered for the lever. If I'm dye-painted, I'm already marked, he said, blushing when he realized he'd said it out loud. At 15:59, the sky held its breath. Cadets in the stadium rose for the anthem. Flags flapped. The microphone hissed. On the map, a red dot blinked to life under the wall, Mercer's beacon, radiating smug confidence. Lena's hand hovered over a separate switch, one she'd kept in her pocket, a circuit that would broadcast her voice through a private channel that only a shadow unit ghost would recognize. She pressed it. Wade, she said into the air, class is in session. The detonation, when it came, was modest, a hard clap, a puff of concrete dust, a ripple through the catwalk like a shiver through a sleeping animal. The brace took the punch, the sacrificial plate sang with stress, and the judgment wall moved exactly an inch and a half before settling. From the stadium it looked dramatic and harmless. From the vein it looked wrong. Cute, Mercer's voice said over the private channel, amused, but tight. You always did love your belts and suspenders. Stand up and take a bow, Lena answered, walking the catwalk with a calm she didn't feel. Let the kids see what a perfect plan looks like when it meets an uncooperative world. Ellis' team flowed to their positions, silent shadows at access hatches, fire doors, stairwells. Graves' crew watched the strain gauges flatline back to safe. In the tunnel, Patterson crouched by the lever, breath steady, counting the beats of the anthem with his lips. Tell me something, Mercer said, voice closer now. When they benched us, when they called us relics and told us to go teach, did you miss the part where we decided what the future would look like? Because I didn't. You decided to sell it, Lena said. There's a difference. And you decided to sweep floors. I decided to stand where it matters when it matters, she said. Today, that's here. He chuckled. Then catch. A hatch popped under the catwalk, barely a sneeze of sound, and a slim canister rolled out, clinked once, and began to hiss. Ellis moved, but Lena was closer. She kicked it off the catwalk. It fell, hit the sacrificial plate, and coughed a cloud of tracer that bloomed blue as ocean light. The dye found the vents. The vents breathed. The vein exhaled, and painted the crawler. Patterson saw it first through the grate, the blue mist rushing past, a human silhouette etched in color, slipping deeper toward the kill switch doors. His training said call it in. His gut said move. He yanked the lever. Steel slammed. The vein became a sealed artery. The private channel crackled with static and, finally, breathing. Not calm anymore. Bad vein day? Lena said. Always with the jokes, Mercer murmured, and now the sound came from a speaker at the base of the wall. He was piping himself onto anything that would listen. You built a cage. For me. For whoever crawled, Lena said. I prefer names. A long pause, then, I wanted you to admit it. That you miss it. The control. The certainty. I miss my people, Lena said, voice low. I miss the ones we lost when the certainty broke. I miss the young who never get a fair fight because men like you stack the deck to prove a point. The anthem ended. Applause washed the stadium. On the map, ellipses of blue appeared, dye marks on doors, on vents, on one square of floor that wasn't floor at all but a maintenance hatch leading to the tunnel's midpoint. Ellis pointed, already moving. That's our door. They reached it together, Ellis with two operators, Graves cursing the stain on his boots, Lena with her broom like an old, familiar spear. The hatch will turn grudgingly. Inside, the light was the color of electric milk. Mercer crouched 10 feet back, dye painting his beard and hairline, making him look like a statue dredged from a lake. In his hand, a detonator the size of a candy bar. He smiled like a tired teacher. Director. Wade, Lena said. For a heartbeat nothing moved. Then Patterson, who had come up behind them and was supposed to stay behind them, spoke, too young, too earnest, too loud. Sir, don't. Mercer's eyes flicked. Not to Patterson. To Lena. Measuring what she would do if he twitched. She didn't give him the chance. The broom moved. Not a swing, too slow. A jab, straight, sharp, center mass on the wrist. The detonator clattered to the floor, skittered, and Graves' boot pinned it. Ellis operators flowed like water, arms folded, plastic bit hands. Mercer sagged against the wall and laughed, dye cracking on his cheeks. A broom. Of course. Lena drew a slow breath. Always sweep the corners. They walked him out in cuffs in a rain of curious stares. Cadets craned necks. Instructors stood a little straighter without meaning to. Patterson wiped dye from his cheek and tried not to grin like an idiot. The wall loomed behind them, scarred, braced, standing. In the debrief that night, they cataloged every bolt, every tool, every second on the clocks. Graves got his team a pizza the size of a truck hood. Ellis found a way to say good work that sounded like a medal and not a lullaby. Patterson fell asleep in a chair and woke to a blanket he swore appeared by itself. Lena waited until the room emptied. Alone with the blueprints, she traced the spine of the course one last time. The place would change, new braces, new rules, new eyes on every junction. Good. That was the point. Ellis reappeared in the doorway, hands in pockets. You could stay, he said. Not as a ghost. As what you are. What am I? She asked lightly. Builder, he said. Teacher. The person who turns dangerous into daring and makes kids think they did it themselves. She looked at the broom, at the wall, at the dark rectangle of the window that reflected a woman with dye stains on her sleeves and a steadiness in her shoulders she thought she'd lost. I'll stay, she said. But not in an office. Ellis nodded. Didn't think so. The next morning dawned clean and bright. 100 cadets lined at the start line, the ground still damp from night sprinklers. Lena stepped onto the catwalk and tied a strip of cloth over her eyes. The recruits went very, very quiet. Today, she called, voice carrying, we talk about 3 kinds of fear, the kind that keeps you alive, the kind that lies to you, and the kind you can turn into fuel. We'll start with the wall. She vaulted blindfolded, once, clean as sunrise. When she landed, she didn't bow. She pointed to positions 7 through 12 and smiled. Now you. They didn't know her whole story. They didn't need to. What they knew was enough. The wall had moved, the ground had held, and the person who designed the trap had chosen to stand in front of it when it counted. Sometimes the mission requires stepping out of the shadows. Sometimes it requires staying where the brooms are, and teaching others how to sweep.